Welcome to Helpful Druidry, Part 4. This will be a discussion of modern Druidry and it's kind of meant to be experimental. I wanted to discuss the fact that right now, Druidry, unlike sort of its mainly seemingly singular original form, exists in a world where we are very inherently basically a tiny minority in terms of practice. Even in the heyday of probably the Bronze or Iron Age, there were probably less than 1% of the whole population was Druidic because it was a profession and it's a responsibility. And of course, most folks were working, farming, pottery making, producing, and working. And being a druid is basically, of course, as I've previously mentioned, being a healer and theologian and craftsperson, but for the help of their community. And it's a reasonably, it's essentially you're in the role of different parts of the intelligentsia, but for the help and benefit of your community and with the inherent requirement of public service. So, in regards to today, Anno Domini 2026. I wish I had a better year for this. But any other would be cultural appropriation, but say la vie. Anyway, the biggest thing is we currently live in a world where there's a lot of occultism and witchcraft and preparations of different sorts and ways. You've got Wiccans, you've got sort of general eclecticism, which is, I think, most common, and I think a very reasonable thing. Personally, and you don't have to do this, I think most gods are worthy of study, and I don't think any of them are inherently false. I just think that, I mean, yeah, of course, I think that some priests and clerics and leaders can be absolutely, but that doesn't suggest that the faith that they are and sort of happen to be in charge of is inherently wrong. I doubt that's the case, actually. But we are here to discuss what to actually do and useful sources and actually how we can practice in the modern age. Because, of course, there's no real guidebook. There are, of course, the orders. The OBOD, Order of Bards, Obates, and Druids, and the AOD, Ancient Order of Druids, and the RDNA, the Reformed Druids of North America, and many others actually. And they probably have, between all of them, about something on the order of 40,000 members, with the OBOD being the largest. And I actually, never mind. I'll leave it be. I just, I hope that essentially one day there could be more of a discussion. I think that there's just a lack of that. But essentially, let's get on to the fun bit. And that, I would say, is the actual magic itself. And I feel like it bears discussion. A lot of people who will be watching this have never seen much miraculous. I mean, between the way we have to work often just to support bills, the way that um, just being a person today requires essentially a great amount of technology and a lack of interaction with nature almost inherently, unless you're in a very specific social situation. And from that, of course, you're going to have less stuff to talk about spiritually, less interactions that are as noteworthy because you're not able to get out, you're not able to live as we kind of want to, or might want to, if we knew or thought of it as an option. A lot of you probably think that this is hokum, and I hope you stick around. I hope you find something fun here. But anyway, so let's start with divination. Divination is basically the act of divining, sometimes through divine inspiration or through materials. Stones, gems, tarot cards are within the realm of divination. And I actually think divination via tarot, even though, of course, yeah, no, that's not there was, I don't think even, there's genuinely very unlikely that paper is accessible to druids. Um, Partially climate wise, and a few other reasons, but we know they used vellum, but that's on sticks and stones. But anyway, the tarot is, I think, useful because obviously it's symbology. I think a lot of people ridicule it because it's so passe and kind of it's sort of baby's first divination, but that I think comes from a point of because it's accessible, it feels kind of off. Like it's and I think that that's because, yeah, if you're not trying to understand the basis of it, yeah, you're not going to get as much out of it. But when you have an understanding of what it means, the tower, I mean, that's kind of obvious. It's sort of the Tower of Babel, the idea of sort of the great upheaval. Different bits of it have different meanings and are tracing back to memories and images and stories. And the better we can do with that, um, the better off we are. Um, if you can understand why, if you can, first of all, I would recommend naming them. Everything comes from the earth in some way or another. And if you can respect it and remember that, you might give it something. And this is, of course, kind of key is the respect and of what we practice with. It's the respect of a good tool because the tool will do better by you if you care for it. Belief has a power. I would define all spell work as essentially belief plus ritual towards an action, or rather a goal that might require direct action. And it's often better if you can and do, even if it's not inherently directing towards that action, that goal you have. But the action could be key. It's proving your sort of it's proving that you believe and are willing to actually put the effort in. It's secondary ritual. A great example of this might be, say I wanted to make a spell to bring back um, populations of monarch butterflies. And essentially, what I might do is do a ritual that takes a lot of effort because, of course, we're talking about something that affects an entire species. So you want to put in a good bit of effort. You'd want to maybe light these candles and keep an eye on them for multiple hours and kind of care for the idea to be thoughtful about it to believe, and you have to believe or it might not succeed. I don't think it would even slightly succeed if you just said mechanically, oh, I'm going to this. I don't think this will work, but why not? I mean, then that's just called a boring evening. But if you believe in it, you might succeed. And essentially, with that, you also might care for a garden, care for some flowers that butterflies might like, so that in your own way, that as a direct action, you're helping them along and doing something pleasant for them. And then from that, the spell would thereby be something of a greater impetus than the sum of its parts. And that's one of the biggest kinds of spell works. And with that in mind, I feel like you can kind of understand a lot of other things. A lot of rituals you probably do every day to remember things kind of fall into this, or beliefs, or responses. A lot of people in high stakes environments become superstitious for good reason. I mean, if something doesn't work enough times, um, for a reason that's not obvious, you'll stop doing it. And I mean, it's the sort of, yeah, no, that room's cursed kind of thing in a hospital, or the don't speak the word flood in this building because that's how the building floods. And this is a sort of recorded thing. And it's not reasonable to suggest that this is some kind of foolishness because these are professionals and they're the people who know it the best. And if they think it's real, it's probably real. So, with that in mind, I feel like one thing I would suggest is sources and finding really good sources. I mean, I've been through a ton of modern publications on magic. They vary wildly. There's this occult encyclopedia I got, and they mislabeled when the Belle Epoque ended. They said 1917, as in 3 years into World War One, and at the beginning, first sentence is an error. It varies, and you need to be ready for the fact that this is a craft that has a ton. A lot of folks will go into this because they don't want to be academics and they don't have the chops for it. You can be good at this. We need skilled folks. One person I would highly recommend is Kiro. This is a pseudonym. As you can find Kiro's world predictions. I'm afraid he's very dead. But his work is incredible for one key reason. Key. Uh, Essentially, he does something very important. He actually uses genuine, and I hate this word, academic rigor, where essentially he'll both use his forms and he focuses on astrology and palmistry. I am not a palmist. If it weren't for this, would probably find myself dissuaded from practicing it, from sort of the pop culture osmosis of palmists being sort of charlatans. But I mean, this I think sort of pushes in the opposite direction. Heroes' world predictions predicted global warming, the sort of a slow, grinding conflict at the end of the 1990s that would be a series of sort of prolonged forever wars. And he also predicted decolonialism. And very keenly, he's a man who is wonderfully uninterested in sort of colonial ideas of the time. He doesn't think of the British Empire as much more than just an empire, and respects and considers the Aztecs and the like the Mughals and different cultures of the past as valuable and key. And with all of that in mind, I feel like the biggest thing I would ask you to take away for this video is that there is good information out there. There are really skilled people in this. I'm only 8 years along in my practice, but I take it very seriously. And there are folks far better at this than me, but they often don't publish their work because simply enough, there's still a stigma to it, and they often have jobs to keep. I don't. But essentially, I can do my best, and I believe you can too. And hopefully, you and I can learn something.